and welcome to the session today. My name is Jeff Tatusco. I'm going to be your instructor slash facilitator. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about the PL900 information. This is basically some information about the Power Platform, giving you some opportunities to see a little bit of information about it, giving you some ideas as to some of the different features that are associated with it, and giving you some opportunities to get an idea as to what you can do with some of these different features. A little bit of information about myself. Once again, my name is Jeff Tatusco. I am a senior hybrid instructor slash data analyst here at New Horizons, which sounds like a pretty lofty title. Basically means I teach a lot of different types of classes, including Power Platform classes. I also teach, SharePoint, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, those kinds of classes. And I do some data analytics on the side, just kind of keep things fresh in my mind. I am based here in Pittsburgh, so a warm welcome from the Steel City, where it is supposed to be 80 degrees today and somewhat rainy, but we'll take that here in the middle of August. Anyhow, a lot of people like to be able to see a list of certifications that the instructor has. You can see what I have there: the DAA, the MCSABI, MCP, MCT, MCCT, MTA, EIEIO, and so on and so forth. I am also a MOS Master certified, which is basically the Office programs for. You can see the different versions that are listed there. The powers that be like me to let you know that I am a 4-time top 20 worldwide instructor in the New Horizons Network. You can take that for what it's worth. And in case you're wondering about my overall mindset, I am a huge fan of the Muppets. However, I'm much more of a classicist and much prefer the original version rather than the subsequent versions that have been out over the past few years or so. But, to each their own. So, having said that, what exactly are we going to be talking about today? Well, the first thing we need to do, we kind of need to figure out what exactly the Power Platform is. So I'm going to kind of go through, give you a brief introduction as to what all it's incorporated into it and some of the different features that are going to be built in. Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about all of the different programs today because there are different things that we're going to be able to do, and some things, it takes a little bit more is a little bit more involved. But we're going to focus really on 3 more of the functions that are really built into the Power Platform. One is going to be Power Apps, where we can go in and we can do a variety of different things and kind of organize some different programs to be able to, get things done in our system. So we have some opportunities where we can go ahead and incorporate that. We need to be able to go ahead and automate some programs. So we're going to talk a little bit about Power Automate and make sure that we can get things done in a fast, efficient manner. The other program that I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about has to do with Power BI. Again, that's going to be a little bit more where you're going to be doing some reporting, and we're going to be able to go in and show how that data that you're going to be pulling in and be able to get a lot of different options to be able to see exactly what's going to be associated with it. Okay, so like I said, that's kind of what I have on tap for you for about the next hour or so. So the first thing we need to do, we need to be able to figure out what is the Power Platform. What we're going to be talking about here is, again, what's called the PL900. PL900 is the official mock or Microsoft official curriculum class that leads to a certification. It actually incorporates a total of 5 different programs that can work in conjunction with one another, or basically with outside programs, or even in as a standalone feature to be able to go ahead and do a variety of different things. So what exactly are those 5 programs? The first one, again, is going to be Power Apps. This is going to be a program that's going to allow you to go ahead and create different types of apps for use really throughout your organization. That way you can make it easier to go ahead and perform a variety of different functions without having to involve third-party developers or thinking about some of the different problems that could incorporate. We're going to talk a little bit about Power Automate as well. Power Automate, well, automates business processes. It kind of allows you to work with all kinds of programs to be able to allow your computer to perform tedious, time-consuming functions, allowing you to focus your efforts on more important matters. Again, makes it a whole lot easier to be able to do things like that. Power BI is going to be what you might consider the reporting arm of Power Platform. So it allows you to go ahead and take data from multiple sources and translate it into dynamic visuals, making it much easier to read, digest and be able to understand it a little bit more clearly. By doing this, you can help the powers that be that are to make those data driven decisions to really benefit the company. There's also another program called Power Virtual Agents. That's going to allow you to go ahead and create different types of chatbots that can relieve the pressure from your IT department or even your customer service outlets by answering simple inquiries automatically. Most people are pretty comfortable. I mean, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Most people understand the concept of chatbots. The Power Platform makes it a little bit easier to be able to go ahead and create something along those lines. Finally, the other aspect of this is going to be what's called Power Pages. Power Pages allows users to create websites without the need for any kind of coding experience. These sites can then open up some of the apps and the reports that you use in the Power Platform, not only to those people inside of your company, but you can also set it up so that it's going to be available to the outside world as well, if you so desire. So as I said, all of this information is going to be covered in Microsoft's PL900 Power Platform Fundamentals class. New Horizons has openings for these classes. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the first thing I want to do, let me go ahead and give you an introduction as to some of the different things that you can expect if you decide to go ahead and take that class. So like I said, the first thing I want to go ahead and focus on here has to do with Power Apps and what you can go in, what we can do with some of these different options. When you think of different apps, what comes to mind? Most people imagine some of the different gadgets that are going to be on their mobile phone. Okay. Again, things that will allow you to perform all types of tasks, whether it's shopping, banking, working, even just playing games. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. This class is not going to teach you how to find bargains on Amazon, check your balance, or create the newest game craze. What it will do is give you the basics on creating an app that'll help you do your job more efficiently. And that's going to be really one of the basic things that you're going to be able to go ahead and do to make sure you can go ahead and set up a lot of different types of information and be able to use this. Now, one of the first things that a lot of people think of when they hear creating apps is, well, I'm not a developer. How am I going to be able to go ahead and create an app? Power Apps actually takes that concept and gives it to the people who really need it. The subject matter experts, the people that are actually doing the day-to-day things that need to be done. So let's say, for example, you just need a form in which to enter data in for maybe a spreadsheet or maybe a SharePoint list or something along those lines. Well, with a couple of clicks and about 30 seconds, Power Apps is going to go ahead and give you that form. It really can be that basic. But it can also help you create a wider variety of more complex apps to perform a myriad of different types of tasks. Okay. Now, when you start looking at Power Apps, the apps themselves are basically set up to do a couple of different things. And they can do a lot of different things, but there are two main types of apps that you can go ahead and create. The first type is what is referred to as a Canvas app. Now, this is going to be the most widely used type of app that's going to be associated with Power Apps. Chances are these are the types of apps that you're going to be creating if you decide to go into the Power Apps and start working with this. Because what this can do, it can allow you to connect to all kinds of different information and be able to say, okay, I need to be able to get something done and be able to work with this. If you look over on the right-hand side, I'm going to actually show you this here in a minute, but you can see that there is basically a screenshot of an app that was built. So it allows you to go ahead and pull that up. It's formatted for a phone so that you can go ahead and use it on your mobile device. It's a really, really handy feature. But the fact is, if you want to use it on your phone, if you want to be able to go ahead and use it on your computer, it's going to be available no matter what. And you'll be able to go in there and create these different types of options to be able to see exactly what's in there. Now, these Canvas apps allow you to create this information in what's referred to as a low code environment. I don't say no code environment simply because there is going to be some typing involved when you start working with these, because you're going to need to be able to make sure that when you add different objects into your app, they know exactly what to do. So when you tap on one of those, or if you click on them, depending upon what device you're using, you may want to look at this information and say, okay, I need to be able to go ahead and find some of this data, and I need this to be able to react this specific way when I tap or click on it. And so you have some different options there. So in order for that to happen, we have to say, okay, just as an example, we might want to create a property that says on select. The on select property for any one of those would say, okay, when somebody selects this item, again, with a tap or a click, depending upon the device they're using, then this is going to take place. There's a lot of different ways that you can go ahead and incorporate all of this information. So the Canvas apps are going to be set up where you can go in and incorporate a lot of different options. Like I said, this is really where you're going to be spending the bulk of your time if you're working in Power Apps. Now, the other type of app that can be created is what's referred to as a model-driven app. Now, a model-driven app, when most people hear the term model, okay, they start thinking of data models. And that's exactly what you need to think about when you're working with this. Because you're going to, a lot of times when you're working with different types of apps, you need to be able to store information. So we need to have some kind of data model where we can go ahead and store that. And we can go ahead and work with some of the information in that kind of format. So an example of something you may want to be able to go ahead and do if you were working in both of these. Let's say that you might have a Canvas app that somebody, maybe a salesperson out in the field, might be able to pull up on a day-to-day basis and say, okay, I'm looking at an inventory of all of our information. So I can go in here and I can pull that information up and boom, there it is. It's right at my fingertips. I can go ahead and see that. I can do that maybe with a Canvas app. A model-driven app might be something that's created more for, excuse me, more for the supervisory aspect of it, where you could go in and say, okay, I need to be able to look at this information, find the inventory and say, hey, wait a second, we're running low on this specific item. We need to be able to go ahead and order something like that. There's a lot of different ways to be able to set this up. Now, there are a couple of big differences between Canvas apps and model-driven apps. They both can store data, they both can retrieve data. The model-driven app, again, requires a data model. The data model has to come from Microsoft's Dataverse, okay? Now, you can, if you aren't familiar with Microsoft's Dataverse, it's basically an online data storage area where you can go ahead and store pretty much any kind of information. There are all kinds of tables that are built into it. You can create different columns on those tables and really store whatever kind of information is going to be relevant to it. Now, having said that, in order for that to work, you do need to have a premium license associated with Power Apps and being able to go in there and access that specific data, that version of Dataverse. Now, does that mean you'll never use it? I can't necessarily say that, but you can go in and you can access a wide variety of different tools to make sure you can pull up everything that you need to. Now, another difference between Canvas apps and model-driven apps. Canvas apps, you can go in and you can start from scratch and you could put things wherever you want to and do whatever you want to have. You can have the overall look and feel basically designed the way that you need to. So you have that basically set up. Model-driven apps, basically you connect to your data source, your app is done. And you really don't have any kind of control over the look and feel. Now, some people would say, well, then why would I want to deal with the model-driven app? Again, it's more or less for maybe just as an example, in a supervisory role where you can go ahead and you don't really need a lot of people going in there and playing with it all the time, but it's allowing you to find the information. Now, one other difference between Canvas apps and model-driven apps, I mentioned before that Canvas apps are low code, okay? You do have to do a little bit of typing. Model-driven apps, they are basically no code. There's not a whole lot of information associated with them. So you can go in and you can basically have things set up and not only have the app where you can, access that information, but you can see it in different ways. You'll have different types of charts that are going to be available that you can pull up and be able to understand the information a little bit more clearly. Both of these options need to be able to access data, okay? Now, sometimes it might just be something from the Dataverse. Sometimes it's as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. Sometimes maybe a SharePoint list or a SQL Server database, or maybe something really wide ranging. You know, maybe you need to pull data in from all kinds of areas. Well, Power Apps allows you to have to pull in data from all over the place. And again, it's not just Microsoft tools. You're going to be able to go in and access information really from all over the place. They might come from Microsoft 365. Excuse me, it might come from any kind of other types of locations like third-party data. There are literally hundreds of connectors that are going to allow you to pull this information in and be able to do what you need to with it. Again, sometimes, especially with the Canvas apps, it may not necessarily be just storing information. Sometimes it's going to be a matter of connecting to, well, a storage area that houses, different types of services. For example, we can create a translator app so that we can go ahead and just simply type in something in, is an example, English, and then it automatically translates not just into one language, but we can click a button to automatically have it translate into pretty much any language that we need to. So there's a lot of different ways that we can go ahead and incorporate all this. Now, as I mentioned before, one of the key features with this is the fact that it does allow you to go ahead and pull all this information up so that you can work on any device. It's not just a matter of saying, okay, I have my computer, I can go ahead and work on it. Great. If I have a mobile app, there's a little bit more to it. No, you create it, it's going to be available in both locations. So you can pull up that information and be able to display a lot of different tools and all kinds of different, if you need to create data, if you need to store data, there's all kinds of different options that you can go ahead and work with there to make sure you can get these things done. Let me go ahead and pull something up here really quickly. With apologies, I'm going to come back in here. Actually, that's not the one I wanted. I am going to go ahead and minimize this and pull up my Power Apps screen. Okay, so this is an example of something that you might see in Power Apps. Now, this is the build screen or the edit screen. They refer to it as a canvas. We've created a Canvas app. What do you know? Well, again, there's going to be a lot of different things that we can go ahead and incorporate. We have all types of different sources of data that we can store over here on the left-hand side. Now, if I want to add components, you see that there's a little plus sign. I can simply insert different components. I can connect to a wide variety of data sources. Again, be it the Dataverse, be it an Excel spreadsheet that might be stored in OneDrive, there's all kinds of different data sources. You might want to be able to go ahead and store media. Well, that's kind of what this app does. You can see that I actually pulled in all these different graphics. Well, that's because they're actually stored here in this with the app itself. So now I can go ahead and access pretty much any one of these and be able to display it on any screen that I need to. And there are other tools that are going to be available as well. Now, if I come back here and click on what's referred to as the tree view, this is going to show me all the different, not only the screens that are going to be associated with them, but each one of the controls that are going to be built in as well. So it makes it a whole lot easier to be able to go ahead and find the content and be able to see how this is going to work. Now, some people will look at this and say, okay, well, I can go ahead and see some of this information, but how exactly do I know if it's going to work? Well, if I simply come up, I can come in here and I can preview it by coming up to the top right, clicking the little preview button. Now, it actually pulls up this screen, okay, which is all well and good. I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. If I wanted to go ahead and preview that, that's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the actual home screen. Now, in this case, it says, well, wait a second, what happened to that? All the icons in the middle? Well, they're still there. It's just that I don't necessarily have anything showing them yet. So what I can do is, again, if I preview from this screen, now, by the way, you can see that you can exactly what it will look like if you decide to put it on a tablet, if you decide to put it not just on one phone, you could choose exactly which type of phone you're going to see what it looks like there. Or you can go ahead and show what it's going to look like in the web browser. And this is basically what I'm seeing. So if I want to be able to go ahead and pull this up, I can simply come up, click on the app launcher, and lo and behold, yes, I only have a couple of the apps in here, but I can go ahead and navigate to a specific site. It pulls up a page that might have a video associated with it and some icons down below. If I come to the other one, hey, guess what? It's actually linked to a YouTube video that's been embedded in it. So now if I click play, it's going to go ahead and play the information here.
Hello and welcome to the CK webinar series.
And there you go. So you can go in, you can access all of that information right from that page. So all those different options are going to be available when you open that up. So people like this, they say, okay, well, how long? I mean, boy, that might take an awful lot of time to be able to put those in. No, actually, it really doesn't. This is one of the apps that we build in some of the different in one of the classes that we create, but that's the type of thing that you can go ahead and do. If you notice up at the top of the screen, you will see that over here on the left-hand side, there is a fill option. Now, if I come down here, let's say I go ahead and choose one of the icons inside of the main menu here. So if I click image, this image right here. Okay, here's the team image. Now, you'll notice that there's a property that says image. Well, the name of the image is Teams, and it pulls up that logo. These are all the different properties that are associated with that specific image. If I come down here and I click on select, hey, lo and behold, it says navigate to the Learn Teams screen, which you can see is located down below here. That's what showed up when somebody actually clicked on it. These are basically referred to as formulas. If you're familiar with using Excel, you might go in here and you might see some of that information, and you might be able to go ahead and work with a variety of different tools there to be able to kind of understand it. But it's the same kind of concept. It uses a formula language called PowerFX. So it will give you the opportunity to write something a little bit more familiarly, I guess that, if you want to call that a word, to be able to go ahead and, like I said, get things done. And there's a lot of different ways you can go and incorporate a lot of that information. So that's a quick example of something that you can see maybe in Power Apps. Let's go ahead and switch gears now, and let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Power Automate. Okay. I want you to think about all the time that you have to spend on simple tasks every single day. Okay. From waiting on approvals to moving files to sending emails, all this takes precious time out of your day. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to go ahead and automate some of those tasks so that you can spend your time on other things? Well, that's kind of the purpose of Power Automate. I mean, the purpose of Power Automate really is it's to automate business processes, if you think about it. Okay? I mean, these could be anything from getting approval on requests to moving files into a OneDrive account, to receiving notifications when things happen. There's all kinds of different things that you can go ahead and think about when you set these up. Now, the flows, which are basically the items that you create inside of Power Automate, they have to be triggered in order for them to start. Now, this can be done in a couple of different ways. One thing you can have happen is it just automatically starts as soon as some event occurs. Okay. Somebody uploads a file or somebody sends you an email with an attachment. That is an event that can take place that can happen as a part of a trigger. Now, sometimes you might be able to go ahead and work with this and do other things with it. Sometimes you may just want things to run on a specific schedule. Well, you can create a scheduled cloud flow that will automatically go ahead and run just at a certain time of day. And it makes it a little bit easier that way. Or maybe you want to be able to go ahead and tie this into, let's say, Power Apps. So now you could tap a button or click a button on a Power App, and that serves as the trigger to go ahead and run something run a flow inside of Power Automate. So there's different ways that you can go ahead and incorporate a lot of this information to make sure that you can see how this is all going to kind of come together. One of the most common misconceptions about a lot of programs in Microsoft 365 is the fact that they only work with Microsoft products. And that's simply not true, especially for Power Automate. Okay? This program provides connectors to hundreds of other programs, both inside and outside the Microsoft realm. Just as a quick example, you can create a flow that will automatically take any email attachment that you receive in an Outlook. Let's face it, people are constantly sending you emails in your attachments in your emails. What do you do with them? I don't want to have to go through and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll to be able to go ahead and find them. I also don't necessarily want to put them on my computer because it's just going to slow down my computer. Well, like I said, you can have a flow set up to be able to automatically take any email attachments from your Outlook and save it into an attachments folder that goes into your OneDrive account. Again, it's probably the easiest thing you can do. All you really need to do is click on a template, say, okay, I want this to happen. You sign into both accounts, the flow is created, and that's all you have to do. Now, obviously, there are going to be more convoluted. I don't convoluted is probably the wrong word. More complex flows that you can go ahead and create. There's a lot of different ways that you can go ahead and incorporate these. Now, I mentioned a minute ago that yes, you could take that information from Outlook. If you take an attachment, it'll automatically put it into OneDrive. You could do the exact same thing in Power Automate to take attachments from your Gmail account and put it into a Dropbox account or put it into Google Drive. Again, there's a lot of different ways that you can go ahead and incorporate all of this information to make sure that you can get things done. Now, rather than having to go in and start from scratch, Power Automate allows users to be able to go ahead and start using very basic templates. And again, that what I just talked to you about. Now, if you want to be able to go ahead and start from scratch, you can. But some of those different templates, again, sometimes it's just a matter of a couple of clicks, maybe a sign in, you're done. That's really all that you have to do. Okay. Now, sometimes the template, like I said, just signing into your 365 account, others can require a good bit more because they can get pretty extensive, they can get pretty complex to be able to do things. But users have the ability to perform a lot of different actions. You can actually perform up to 500 actions in a single flow. Now, those include things like conditional branching, creating things like switches, which will allow you to go ahead and have multiple actions appear at the same time. If you look over on the right side of the screen there, and again, it looks a little bit funny, but that is an example of what's called an approval flow. So in other words, it creates all kinds of different steps that were done pretty much automatically. So in this case, it's saying, okay, if somebody creates a file, if somebody uploads a file into a SharePoint site, maybe that file needs to be approved before everybody can go ahead and see it. So the first thing it has to do is it's actually going to grab maybe my profile to be able to say, okay, it needs to say, who's my boss to be able to go ahead and run this. So once it gets my profile, it can find that information, and then it just goes in and it takes the step of creating an approval. So now we can go in and we can look at some of those different tools and be able to see that. Now, from that point, we might need to have multiple items happening, not just in sequence like that, but we may want to be able to go in and create a lot of other options to be able to go and do different things. In this case, there's a switch that's basically set up that's going to apply it to pretty much any file that you attach it to, and it's got to wait for an approval. Now, down at the bottom, it's not actually expanded, but there's a condition that's associated with it. So just for example, you might say, okay, well, if the person approves it, great. If they don't, well, what do we do? But also, it's going to go ahead and send an email out to the person. And then once it's actually done, then the flow can be terminated. So that's an example of a way that you can go in here and incorporate all these different changes to make sure that you can see everything that's going on. If I go ahead and pull this up, this is a little bit of a better view on some of the different features that are in here. Again, you can see that when I click create the approval, if I just simply click on one of the steps here, you'll see that it expands. Now, one of the key features that's going to be associated with these is the fact that you're going to be able to have a lot of dynamic content built in. You know, you saw up above here, it said, get my profile. Well, if I click on my get my profile, you might be able to see some other items that might be built in. In this case, it's just pulling from my email address to be able to go ahead and see that. But now, anytime you see any of these green section or these green highlighted sections here, this is dynamic content. It's allowing you to say, okay, it's going to be the approval type. It's going to look for the file name. It's going to say, okay, who's this actually being assigned to? And then again, there are details that are going to be associated with this. All of this information is going to be attached into an email. So now there can be different types of looping structures that you can go ahead and add in to be able to go ahead and, for example, post a message into Teams, in a chat or a channel of something along those lines to be able to go ahead and display it there. Again, if you notice down at the bottom, there's a condition basically set up. If the outcome is approved, well, then it says, okay, we're going to go ahead and apply each response to approve. So now that's automatically going to reach out to that SharePoint folder that I uploaded, or the file was uploaded to in the first place, and it's automatically going to go ahead and mark it as approved. If no, well, then it's going to do the same thing, except it's not going to approve it. It's going to reject it and allow you to go and pull that information in. Additionally, you look over here on the right-hand side, it'll automatically send an email message out to be able to say, hey, maybe something passed or maybe it failed. So you can go and find out everything that's going on that's going to be built into that. And then again, at some point, you may want to go ahead and say, well, you know what, maybe we need to be able to do some different things in that regard. Now, again, this is just an example of a specific flow that can be created in a variety of different ways. Now, if I come back over here and click on my flows, again, you might see a variety of different options to be able to plug these in. This is the approval flow. Here's one just that I personally use on a regular basis. It's very, very basic. All it does is says, okay, if I receive an email from my boss, it's going to automatically shoot a message over to Teams, because, you know, some people don't necessarily look at, they don't have all their information go directly into their inbox. Like I have all kinds of different folders, and I have all kinds of rules basically set up to say, hey, if I get an email from this person, it goes to this folder. I mean, a lot of people do that. Well, this way, if my boss needs to reach me for something, like through an email, I don't have to worry about sifting through over and over and over again all the emails that I get in my inbox. I can just simply get a notification in Teams that pops up on my screen and says, hey, you just got an email from your boss. Now I can go ahead and look at my email, say, okay, that's easy enough to do. There's a lot of different ways to be able to see this. If you want to be able to go ahead and create a new flow, again, you can come down here. There's all kinds of different options that you can go ahead and work with. You can either create it from up here, or I can come over here on the left-hand side. Now you'll notice also that there's an option for templates. I mentioned before that there are a lot of different templates. This is an example. And if I scroll down through here, you can see that I can see more templates, and I can continue to add all kinds of different templates to be able to see this. One of the things that I mentioned before, saving Outlook.com email attachments to your OneDrive account. Okay. Now, if I click this, basically it'll say, okay, I need to be able to fix my connection, which for whatever reason, my connection is acting a little bit goofy. But once I get this basically set up, I'm set and it's going to be ready to go. That's really all I have to do. I have to sign into my account. And then once I sign into the account, it'll create the flow automatically. Now, that's an example of something that you can do here in Power Automate. Again, some of these are going to be a lot more involved, and they don't all necessarily have to do with just with email. If I want to come in here and find a specific program, let's say SharePoint, I can search for different types of SharePoint templates. Every single one of these are going to be different setups, setups to be able to find them. So let's say, for example, somebody fills out a form in Microsoft Forms. Well, somebody can actually take the form, process it, put it into SharePoint, and also send an email out. Right? Again, even just creating an email when a new item is created in SharePoint. There's a lot of different ways to be able to go ahead and incorporate all these different options that are going to be built in. Even if I switch back here, so if I take out SharePoint up here, there we go, and I come back down through here, once again, you're going to see that there are a lot of different types of templates that are going to be built in, and not all of them have anything to do with Microsoft. Okay? The more you scroll down through here, the more you're going to realize that there are going to be a lot of different components that you're going to be able to work with to say, oh yeah, okay, I need to be able to go ahead and use this. So just as an example, if I come up here, let's say I type in, I don't know, Google. Okay. Look at this. All these different templates I can go ahead and incorporate. So if you're not a regular Microsoft user, you typically use Google. Okay, well, guess what? You can do that. Even if you wanted to be able to create a OneNote page for a Google Calendar event, yeah, it's just that easy. You basically log into both of them and you're done. There's not really a whole lot that needs to be done with it. So you have different ways to be able to go ahead and create different options here and see what's going on. Now, additionally, if you notice over here on the left-hand side, there are going to be different types of connectors that you can go ahead and work with as well. Again, you'll see that there's a big long list. I can scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, and eventually I'll get there. There are hundreds of connectors that you can go ahead and incorporate. Now, obviously, they're not all going to be free. You'll notice that some of them They have this little premium symbol underneath it. When you see a premium symbol, again, you might as well put a dollar sign in front of it. It means that there's going to be some more that needs to be done. But there are all kinds of different things that are going to be associated with this. Here's YouTube. If you want, YouTube's a free account. Again, you might want to be able to go in there and find some information along those lines. But you could scroll down through and find and do all of this really for free. As long as you have a Power Automate setup in your work, you can go in, you can start working with some of this information and really do what you need to with it. So there's a lot of different ways that you can incorporate Power Apps, or I'm sorry, Power Automate into your day-to-day activities. Let's face it, how many times have you ever had to sit through a meeting where someone who is really eager to share information throws a big spreadsheet up on the screen? Okay. And invariably somebody does that, and 5 minutes in, you hear a big thud from somebody's forehead hitting the desk. Okay. Most people can't really grasp that information really beyond much of a couple of numbers. Okay. But what if there was a way that we could go ahead and translate that information into something more meaningful? That's really where Power BI comes in. Power BI allows you to go ahead and create more meaningful reports by creating visually dynamic reports that users can go ahead and incorporate into their jobs. Like I said earlier, this is going to be the reporting aspect of Power Platform. Okay? So it's going to give you the opportunity to go ahead and get a lot of different types of reports that are going to be built in. Now, most people are comfortable using a program like Excel, okay? But obviously, Excel has its limits. For example, you can really only enter data in actually 1,048,576 rows and 16,384 columns, like a total of a little bit north of 17.1 billion cells. So remember, if you take nothing else out of today, if you want to impress your friends at your next party, you can always tell them the last cell in an Excel spreadsheet is XFD104856 and watch them slowly back away from it. But I digress. There are going to be a lot of data sets that are going to require a lot more space than that. Power BI can handle all of that. Okay? Not only can you connect data from a wide variety of different types of sources, okay, but you can pull from all of those sources into the same report. So if you have informational data in Excel or in a CSV file, if you have transactional data stored in SQL Server or an Oracle database, or even something like if you needed to pull data from X. If you want to be able to go in there and find all that and pull it all together, you have the ability to do that. All of that can be combined into a report showing how it all relates to it, to everything. Okay. Now, studies have shown that the human eye actually translates colors and patterns about 60,000 times faster than it can translate numbers. Well, Power BI excels, no pun intended, at creating these dynamic visuals to make sense of all of that data. There are already 30 plus built-in visuals. Okay. I think the last count I had was like 38 built-in visuals that you can incorporate into your reports. And there are more that you can go in and add. There's a plethora of different types of visuals that you can pull in from the Microsoft App Stores to be able to go ahead and do a variety of different things with. So you can always find a way to be able to express your data to tell your story. Okay. Now, another really key association with this is the fact that sometimes your data may not have all of the information that's going to be really most relevant to it. In order to be able to go ahead and work with something along those lines, we need to be able to make calculations, and Power BI does give you that ability. You can make calculations to be able to come up with a single number. Sometimes you may need to create what's called a calculated measure, which again summarizes or aggregates all kinds of information in your data set. Sometimes you may need to create an entire table, or I'm sorry, an entire column for your table that displays whatever information is related to each calculation. And sometimes you may need to just create a brand new table just so that you can go ahead and use it here in your report. Again, Power BI has a formula called DAX that allows you to go ahead and create a lot of these different options. So it makes it a whole lot easier to be able to use those. Again, you can make those calculations and have it all set up and be able to do a lot of different things and get the data that you need to. Okay. Now, there are three main components that are associated with Power BI. If you think about it, you had Power Automate. Power Automate did have it was mostly based in the cloud. There is a desktop component to it where you could go in, you could say, okay, I want to be able to find some information related to this data. And you could go ahead and make actually record different processes from your computer. That's pretty advanced. We don't really get into that in the PL 900 class, but you can go in there, you can do that. Now, Power Apps, that's completely in the cloud. There's no kind of desktop app associated with Power Apps. It's all on the cloud. So you're going to be able to build that. Well, Power BI actually has three components. Like I said, it does have a desktop component. And I'll be honest with you, if you're building your reports, chances are that's probably where you're going to spend a bulk of your time. You're going to be in the desktop app. And honestly, the really nice thing about this is Power BI is free. If you want to download it, all you have to do is go to, and I can pull this up on the screen here, you can simply go to app.powerbi.com. And as long as you have a Microsoft account, which again is going to be free, you can download Power BI. So you can have that desktop version and you can play with it to your heart's content. You can go in, you can create all kinds of different reports. You can even go ahead and, get that information basically set up where you need it to be. Now, one of the key components to this is the fact that you're probably going to want to be able to share this information out. Now, obviously, the Microsoft's not going to give you everything for free. If you want to be able to go ahead and share the information out with people, yeah, you're going to need to have a license associated with that. But once you get that, then you can publish the information up to the Power BI service. That is going to be the web component that's associated with Power BI. Now you can go in and not only upload these reports that you've created, all the data set that goes along with it will be up there. You can get that information in. You can also create what are referred to specifically here in Power BI as dashboards. Now, some people say, well, I can create a dashboard in Excel. Well, a dashboard here in Power BI is going to be a single screen that will allow you to pull up whatever kind of information is going to be relevant and just be able to get a quick glimpse of the most important information. Now, one of the other components that's really, really cool about Power BI is that when you go in there and you want to be able to see some of this information, but maybe the visuals themselves don't tell the whole story. Well, some people say, okay, well, now I need to go in and build a whole new visual and I need to pull up my own information. A lot of times you don't have to do that because the dashboards that are built up in the Power BI service, they actually incorporate what's called a Q&A. And that Q&A allows you to create natural language questions or natural language queries that now basically all you have to do is include the names of the items that are in there, and it will allow you to go ahead and create a visual just like that. And again, you don't need any kind of coding experience for that. If I want, for example, to be able to go in and say which classes run most often, boom, I can get that information as long as the name classes is listed in there. And now I can find the most up-to-date classes and how often they run. There's all kinds of different options associated with this. Now, I mentioned that there are three components to this. Well, the other component is if you want to be able to pull this up, yeah, you have the ability to go ahead and access a mobile device to be able to go ahead and pull up all the reports. Now, one of the really nice things about the mobile version of Power BI is the fact that it's going to be fully functional. If you want to be able to go ahead and be able to turn on different types of filters and slicers inside of your report, you can do that from the mobile app. All the visuals that you have on a specific report are going to be able to interact with each other. So just as an example, if you have a column chart showing, sales for like different stores, okay, you might have another visual on that same page that shows sales for different regions. You might have a third one that shows sales by salesperson. Well, if you click one column on one of those charts, it's automatically going to basically translate that information so that now those other visuals will be, you'll be able to see how that specific item relates to those other visuals. So there's a lot of different ways. And like I said, you can do that on the mobile device as well as the other three components that are associated with this. Now, one of the other nice things about this is the fact that you're going to be able to go ahead and share your information out with, different people. And people say, okay, well, that's great. Yeah, I can go ahead and you can, like I said, you can share a report. Now, there is some licensing involved in order to go ahead and do that. But let's say that you just want to be able to go ahead and, give a PowerPoint presentation. Well, guess what? You can actually connect your Power BI report into a PowerPoint presentation. So that now, just as an example, if I go ahead and pull this up here, what you're seeing right now is a report that I have built into my Power BI service. Now, some people are going to look and say, oh, great, congratulations, you just created a snapshot. No, this is completely interactive. If I click on this, you'll see that it's automatically going to go ahead and register every single item on this page. So now I can go in and I can look at different components. If I want to be able to go ahead and click on it again, now maybe I want to go ahead and see apps classes. Boom, there it is. I have all the information that I need to be able to find this. If I want to go in here and find a different time frame to be able to extend it, boom, there it is. This is all basically inside of a PowerPoint that allows me to go ahead and pull up a lot of different types of information and be able to go ahead and see everything that's going on there. Now, just to kind of give you an example, if I come in here, okay, this is basically the same report. Now, what I did was I embedded that report page into my PowerPoint. Now, having said that, what I've done here is I'm actually showing you, if you look over here on the left-hand side, all of the pages that are basically associated with this report. So now, if I want to be able to go and find, like I said, the most run classes, now I can go ahead and look at this information. Again, it's completely interactive. I can go in here, I can expand it to be able to knock it down by quarter. I can add in different types of classes that we teach. Obviously, in this case, now this has been a while since I've actually gone in and updated the data. But again, if I'm looking at some of this information, you could be able to see, hey, this is one of the classes that we run most often. If I'm looking more for tech classes, okay, great. These, you can see that we teach a lot of SQL classes in AZ 104. All this information is going to be built in that I can go ahead and find on a regular basis. There's a lot of different ways that I can go and use this. If I need to be able to go ahead and share this information, okay, now I can go ahead and share it. And you can see that a lot of the sharing is really very similar to what you might see in SharePoint or in OneDrive or something along those lines. So if I click the link here, again, I could choose just to share it with specific people. So that they can go in there, they can pull up whatever kind of information is going to be necessary, and then I can go ahead and use that. So like I said, people can go ahead and collaborate on those reports and be able to go ahead and make sure that everybody's going to be up to date. But the big thing is you're going to be able to publish this up to a specific area where people can go in and they can pull up a lot of different tools here and be able to see how all of that information is going to kind of work together. Again, that's just a quick example of something that you can go ahead and do in here. I mean, I can create different types of options that are going to be built in. If I come into my own workspace, again, there might be some different opportunities to be able to go ahead and find specific dashboards. So if I come over here, if I open up this dashboard, now, like I said, you'll notice that I have some information listed up above here. This is basically a dashboard. Now, there's not really a whole lot to it, but if I want to be able to go ahead and find, I can click on the Q&A. Not only can I click on the Q&A, it'll actually give me an opportunity to have some tiles here. So if I want to look for total enrollment for all 2021 classes, I can click on that. Boom, there's my number. It automatically puts that in. If I want to be able to go ahead and see total enrollment for all apps classes in 2022. Okay. I can go in here, I can pull that up. And again, it may, depending upon what kind of information I have set up there, it doesn't necessarily like apps classes, but maybe a total enrollment for all apps A. Boom, 36,000. There it is. So it allows me to go ahead and find this information. Now, again, if I wanted to be able to total enrollment for or by class name. Okay, there it is. And if I decide, you know what, I don't like that. I want to see it as a column chart. As column chart. Boom, there it is. Now, not only can I take this information and use it and be able to look at it here, if I want to, I can actually pin this visual back to the dashboard that I was just working on. Okay, so now I click pin. Now, if I click exit Q&A, there's my visual right here. Okay, now I have this basically set up. It's a really good way to be able to go and store a lot of different types of information there. Okay, again, just a quick rundown on some things that you can do here in Power BI. Okay, but wait, there's more. And I'm working on my infomercial voice here, but there are other components that are built into the Power Platform. Again, there's two main components that you can go ahead and work with in here, right? Like I said, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, those are the three most popular components, but that, like I said, they're not the only ones. There are two more programs that are both actually built into Power Apps, which will actually complete the suite. The first one is going to be what's called Power Virtual Agents. Now, Power Virtual Agents allow users to go in and create different types of chatbots using a program that allows them to add different topics. Okay, so it gives you the opportunity to go ahead and set this up so that, again, maybe you're trying to help your IT department, maybe you're trying to help your customer service agents. There's a lot of different ways you can go and incorporate this. Now, again, this is not a program that's going to require a lot, like an advanced degree in AI or anything along those lines. Really, you can start from scratch and really build it out to your own specifications. And this can be done by the subject matter experts. It doesn't have to require a third party or anything along those lines, because let's face it, they're the ones that know what kind of questions they're going to get. They also know the types of responses that typically happen when they do something like this. Now, what you can do is you can incorporate that into your AI setup so that it's automatically going to be able to learn from all the incoming questions, so that way it can become more efficient. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people have a negative attitude toward chatbots simply because the people that build them don't really take a lot of time to be able to go and set them up properly. And this is probably going to be true here. But if you take the time to go in there and create a chatbot that knows what it's doing and how you can go ahead and get all the proper information in there, then yeah, it's going to be something that's really going to be helpful, and it's going to save a lot of people a lot of time from going in here and using those information. Okay. Like I said, it gives you the opportunity to kind of go in there. Now, again, I know what you're thinking. Hate talking to a robot. I'd really rather just talk to a human. It is understandable, but like I said, a lot of chatbots, they're not user friendly. It takes time and effort, but the more you put in, the more human sounding that chatbot's going to become, and you can go ahead and make it more useful that way. Okay. Now, one of the problems that you have, a lot of people run into with the Power Platform, is the fact that you really can't share it outside of your company. Well, you have a program now that will allow you to change that. It's called Power Pages. It actually used to be referred to as just portals. Okay. This is going to be a program that will allow you to create an extranet website. That means that members of the public could be able to go in there and see the different types of things that you want to be able to go ahead and share. Like I said, it gives you the opportunity to go ahead and create your own extranet if you want it. If you want it to be just an intranet where everybody in the company can access that, you have the ability to go ahead and work with that information. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I don't know HTML or anything along those lines. How in the world am I going to be able to create a specific type of page and get that all set up? Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm lucky I can spell HTML. Okay. You don't need to have any kind of experience with HTML or any other kind of coding language, because what you're going to be able to do is you can create fantastic looking pages simply by clicking your mouse and adding a few things that way. Okay. You don't have to type a lot of code in order to go ahead and incorporate all of these different options. You're going to have these different features that you're going to be able to go ahead and incorporate. And one of the really nice things about this is that you're going to be able to go in there. You can share these apps and you can share the reports that you've built inside of Power Apps or Power BI. You can share it with those people on the outside with the extranet. If you don't have that extranet, guess what? People aren't going to be able to access it. But using Power Pages, you're going to be able to do things like that. So, having said all that, where exactly would you go from here? What exactly is this going to lead into? Well, again, basically, we're talking really in this class about the PL900. We do have upcoming classes October 5th, November 8th. If you are interested, we can get you set up and we can get you signed up for those. Not a problem. But obviously, that's going to lead to a lot more. The PL 100, which is an app maker class, basically allows you to go ahead and build solutions. You can simplify, you can automate, and you can transform tasks and processes for themselves. And then for people that are going to be setting this up. Okay. The PL 200 basically allows you to use the Power Platform to kind of simplify, automate, and empower different types of business processes for really organizations as a role as a functional consultant. Again, you can see both of those classes are 4 days. The PL 300 class really just focuses on the Power BI program. It is a 3-day class. I love that class, but you can go in there and it'll show you some of the best practices that are in line with that. The PL 400 basically helps you learn how to build Power Apps. You can learn how to automate different types of flows and really extend the platform to a lot more complex business requirements. Okay. You have the PL 500. That's going to get into that Power Automate RPA developer, which is going to be the desktop version of Power Automate, where you can go in and you can kind of record different processes on your computer and be able to do different things in that regard. And then finally, you have what's called the PL 600 class, which really goes into helping you become a solution architect. That way you can you figure out exactly what they do during the implementation. They talk about security, integrations, Power Apps architecture. There's all kinds of information that's going to be in there. Okay. So that's basically what I have for you today. Before I go ahead and open this up to questions, I am going to go ahead and turn it back over to Brandon, and he is going to go ahead and say a couple words for you.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. If we can all give Jeff a thank you in the chat or do a reaction of an applause, we're so grateful for him and what he's been able to present to us throughout this past hour. So thank you so much, Jeff. I just want to thank you all for attending today. We are, as you know, we are New Horizons, and we are here to be able to support you in your personal and professional development, along with your company's advancements and helping you to be able to learn what you need to stay ahead of the wave and all of that. So we would love to be able to see you again in future webinars. You're always welcome to register for any webinar that you are interested in, while also you can continue to register for any courses, whatever you may be interested in. If you're also like, you know what, all this has been great, but I'm still a little confused as to how New Horizons can support me, or I need some help with registering for a course or whatever it may be. After this webinar, we're going to have a 1-question survey when you exit. That's just going to ask, would you like to continue the conversation? And that simply means if you are interested in learning more, if you need help to register or whatever it may be, go ahead and say yes. We'll get you connected with one of our account executives or whoever may be the best person to assist you. And we'll be able to assist you that way. So as always, you're welcome to follow us on LinkedIn and stay connected with us that way also. But just want to thank you all for attending today. We will now open up a Q&A that Jeff will lead, and we will go from there.
All right. Thank you very much, Brandon. Yeah, like I said, I will go ahead and share my screen back out here. And, oops, that's the wrong one. Let me go back in here. But yeah, again, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and shout them out if you want to be able to go and do something along those lines. And we'll kind of go in and give you some different answers there. Pull up my Zoom screen again. That's what I need. I need my Zoom screen. There we go. All right. So like I said, if you have what kind of questions, yeah. Is it possible to create a Power App that writes data into Power BI? Yeah, there are different ways that you can go ahead and incorporate Power Apps into Power BI. It actually is it's actually a visual that you have inside of Power BI where you can go in, you can say, okay, I need to be able to find this kind of information. Boom, you can pull that in. Or as you suggest, there are different ways where you're just trying to type in, maybe you just have a form, you want to fill the information in and be able to plug that directly into your report. Yeah, Power Apps works really well with Power BI, and you have a lot of different ways to be able to do something like that. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay. What other kind of questions do you have? Yeah, no problem. Okay. Like I said, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to go and throw them in the chat there. If you use premium services within Power BI, the users who utilize it have to have the same license. Yeah, unfortunately, that's one of the, that's kind of one of the licensing runarounds that you have. In order for people to be able to go, especially within Power BI and also with Power Apps, everybody that wants to be able to consume a report, they have to have what's called a Power BI Pro license. So that means that they'll be able to go in that. Again, they don't necessarily need to do a lot with it, but that will allow them to be able to go in there and incorporate and be able to use these different reports on a regular basis. So then you can go ahead and share it. They could even then go in and create their own reports. But yeah, to answer your question, they do have to have at least a pro license in order to pull that in. Okay. All right. What other kind of questions do we have? Yeah, no problem. Do all premium services cost the same, or is it dependent upon the service? Yeah, unfortunately, that really is going to be dependent upon the service. Some of them require full-on subscriptions for like a monthly fee. Some of them are going to be a one-time fee, and yeah, the prices are really going to be all over the place. There is no really yes or no that it's going to be this set price, because it really does depend on the service that you're trying to connect to. What other kind of questions do we have? Okay, well, if not, guys, like I said, I'd like to thank you all for attending. I hope you got something out of this other than a headache. If you have any questions, my email address was on the screen there. By all means, feel free to go ahead and reach out, and I'll be more than happy to answer some questions for you. But in the meantime, I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope to work with you again. Oh, no problem. Thank you, Christian. I appreciate it.